He wasn't even on her porch. That was the part that would have been funny if it hadn't turned so ugly so fast. The video that started it all was shaky doorbell footage from a quiet cul-de-sac, late afternoon light, a delivery tote swinging at the edge of the frame. A man in a USPS uniform walked up, scanned a package, tucked it behind a planter, and turned to go. Normal. Routine. The kind of ordinary moment that happens a million times a day and means nothing to anyone. Until someone paused it at the wrong second. A screenshot hit the neighborhood watch app that same evening. Zoomed in so hard, the pixels looked like they were sweating. The caption was short, self-satisfied, and confident in a way that only people who have never been wrong online can be. Porch pirate. Under it, the comments rolled in like a tide. Call the cops. Post his face. He's been casing homes. Don't let him back in here. Get the HOA involved. Send it to the post office. They weren't just accusing a stranger. They were building a story about him. A story where he was guilty by default, where the uniform was just a costume, where a black man walking up to a porch was suspicious, even when he was literally doing his job. His name was Darnell Price, and he'd been delivering mail for nearly 20 years. He was one of those postal workers who knew the dogs by name and the old folks by routine. The kind of guy who waved even when people didn't wave back. He had a worn shoulder from carrying weight every day and the kind of legs that come from walking routes in heat, rain, and whatever else the sky decided to throw at you. He didn't work that neighborhood every day. He rotated routes. That week he was covering for a coworker with a bad knee. Darnell hadn't asked for a new route. He'd been told. On Monday, the comments stayed online. On Tuesday, someone printed the screenshot. On Wednesday, the neighborhood watch posts had multiplied like mold. There were sightings. There were reports. There were half-truths dressed up as certainty. People uploaded doorbell clips of Darnell walking past their hedges. People circled his hands in still frames as if he were holding stolen goods instead of a scanner. Someone posted a picture of his truck with the license number visible, and other people thanked them like it was heroic work. The app, which was supposed to be for missing pets and broken streetlights, turned into a courtroom where evidence didn't matter, only vibes did. And the worst part was how quickly it spilled out of the app and into the real world. On Thursday morning, Darnell pulled his USPS truck onto the street and felt the atmosphere before he could explain it. A curtain snapped closed. A garage door paused halfway, then lowered again. A woman watering flowers stopped and stared like she was taking his picture with her eyes. When he stepped out, a man walked out of a driveway and stopped him mid-stride. "You're not supposed to be here," the man said. Darnell looked down at his uniform as if he needed to check that it was real. He held up his scanner. He did the calm voice, the customer service voice. He said he was USPS. He said he was on the route. He said he could show the manifest on his device. The man didn't care. "You're the guy from the app," he said, loud enough for other people to hear. "We know what you did." Darnell felt heat rise into his face, not from guilt, but from the insult of being treated like a criminal while wearing government-issued blue. He tried to keep it simple. He said he never stole anything. He said he was delivering mail. He said he had 20 years on the job. He said his supervisors could confirm it. He said the package in the video was scanned delivered. He said the GPS scan matched the address. The man smirked like that was a cute story. You people always have an excuse. Darnell swallowed the words he wanted to say. He went back to the truck. He finished the route because that's what you do when you're trying to keep your job and your sanity. Then the call came. Not to him. About him. A resident called the local police department and reported a suspected porch pirate impersonating USPS. So when Darnell rolled up to the next street, a patrol car was already there. The officer didn't pull a weapon, but he didn't need to. The posture was enough. The slow walk, the hand near the belt, the eyes scanning Darnell the way you scan a problem. Darnell stood by his truck, hands visible, scanner hanging from his wrist like a badge. He said he was USPS. He said he was delivering. He said he could call his station. The officer asked for identification anyway. Then asked why the neighborhood was complaining. As if a rumor were evidence. While Darnell stood there explaining himself, people watched from their porches like it was entertainment. Phones came out. Someone whispered something to someone else. A woman stood with her arms crossed and a satisfied look, like this was the moment she'd been waiting for. Darnell felt something shift in his chest. Not fear, something colder. This wasn't about the package. This was about the fact that he was in their space, and they felt entitled to decide whether he belonged there. The officer eventually let him go after verifying his credentials with dispatch. The officer didn't apologize. He told Darnell to just finish up and said the neighborhood was on edge. Darnell got back into the truck and sat for a long moment with both hands on the steering wheel. He could still feel the eyes on him. At the end of the day, he went back to the station and tried to brush it off the way working people brush things off. He handed in the scanner. He signed the log. He said goodnight to coworkers. Then his supervisor called him into the back office. The supervisor was a black woman named Ms. Alvarez, who ran the floor like she'd been trained by steel. She closed the door, looked at Darnell for a long second, and asked one question. What happened on that route? Darnell told her. All of it. The app, the confrontation, the police stop, the filming. Ms. Alvarez didn't interrupt. She didn't do comforting phrases. She did something better. She opened a folder. Inside was a printed complaint from a resident, addressed not to the local post office, but to a district customer affairs email. The subject line was dramatic, like they were reporting a felony. It included screenshots from the watch app, timestamps, and an accusation that Darnell was stealing packages while posing as USPS. There was also a demand. Remove him from our route permanently. Miss Alvarez tapped the paper. This is serious, she said. Not because they're right, because this can affect your record if we don't shut it down properly. Darnell felt his stomach drop. 20 years of clean service, and now a rumor could become a stain. He asked if he was being disciplined. Ms. Alvarez said no, not yet. But she needed his statement. She needed accuracy. She needed him to remember every stop and every scan. Then she said something that made Darnell blink. They think they have video, she said. We have video too. Darnell didn't understand at first. He thought she meant doorbell footage, the kind residents posted. Ms. Alvarez shook her head. USPS route coverage had evolved over the years. There were scanner GPS logs. There were time and location stamps. There were vehicle telematics. And on many routes, there were additional records that could be requested when a complaint involved theft or misconduct. The institution had a memory. and Ms. Alvarez had no intention of letting a neighborhood app rewrite Darnell's story. The next day, USPS Customer Affairs requested the original post from the Neighborhood Watch platform. They requested the raw footage, not the cropped clip. They also requested the resident's claim details: which address, which package, which tracking number, which day, which time. The resident's story, it turned out, was light on specifics and heavy on certainty. There was no tracking number, there was no confirmed missing package, there was no police report for a theft. There was only the feeling that a black man had looked suspicious near a porch. Ms. Alvarez escalated it. She asked for every relevant route record for that day: scanner logs, GPS pings, delivery confirmations, and timestamps for each stop in that neighborhood. She also asked for any footage the station could lawfully obtain related to the route, including vehicle camera data where applicable and station loading area footage showing what Darnell took out that morning. Darnell watched this unfold like a person watching a storm form over his head. He didn't want to fight. He wanted normal life. He wanted to deliver mail and go home. But normal life had already been taken from him the moment someone posted his face online with a criminal label. A week later, the neighborhood doubled down. Another post appeared. This time, it included a new doorbell clip. Darnell walking up to a different porch, bending down, and placing a parcel behind a column. The caption read like a victory lap. "Caught him again." Comments exploded. One resident claimed their package never arrived, even though they hadn't checked behind the planter. Another suggested Darnell was hiding them to come back later. Someone wrote that the police should search his truck. A man offered to follow him next time. That last comment was the one that made Miss Alvarez go quiet. USPS took it as a threat. Not the online insult kind, the operational kind. A threat to a federal worker doing a federal job. USPS Postal inspectors were brought in. Darnell learned about them the way most people learn about anything powerful. By feeling the shift in seriousness. Suddenly, there were formal interviews. Suddenly, there was a request for him to write his statement in a specific format. Suddenly, there were people in the station who didn't wear the same uniforms and didn't smile much. A postal inspector asked Darnell if he had ever stolen mail. Darnell said no. The inspector asked if he had ever been accused before. Darnell said no. The inspector asked about the police stop. Darnell described it in detail. The inspector asked if anyone had touched him. Darnell paused, then said no, but he'd felt threatened. The inspector nodded as if he understood the difference between physical contact and humiliation. Then the inspector asked the most important question of all. Do you know which package they claim was stolen? Darnell didn't, because nobody had provided a real claim. It was all smoke. And smoke, the inspector explained, was not evidence. But it could still damage a carrier if it was allowed to sit there unchallenged. The postal inspectors did what they do. They built a timeline. They pulled Darnell's scanner data. Every stop in that neighborhood, every scan event, every GPS coordinate, every timestamp. They compared it to doorbell clips residents had posted. They requested original files where possible to check whether timestamps had been altered. They mapped the route like a forensic puzzle. They also did something the neighborhood didn't expect. They reviewed the missing package claims. Turns out, many of the missing items were delivered and later found on the property, behind planters, on side doors, in parcel lockers. Some were picked up by family members and brought inside without telling the person who ordered them. One was delivered to a neighbor with the resident's permission, something the resident forgot to mention when they got angry online. The porch pirate narrative started to crack, but the Neighborhood Watch app didn't slow down. It never does. Once the story is entertaining, people keep feeding it. A white woman posted that Darnell had looked into her garage while walking past. Another posted that he lingered too long. Someone uploaded a clip of him wiping sweat from his brow and called it nervous behavior. Darnell's face became content. His life became a thread. He stopped sleeping well. He took his uniform off in the laundry room and stared at it like it was evidence. He started to dread the sound of his phone because every vibration felt like another accusation. His granddaughter, 8 years old, asked him why he was so quiet. Darnell said he was tired. He didn't want to explain that grown adults were playing detective with his existence. Then Ms. Alvarez called him again. This time, she had a different tone. Not calm, focused. "We're not letting them do this," she said, "and we're not doing it quietly." She told Darnell there would be a hearing, not a criminal trial, a civil proceeding connected to defamation and interference with employment, driven by the fact that the neighborhood's posts were now being used to pressure USPS to alter staffing and routes. In plain English, it had crossed a line from gossip into harm. The Neighborhood Watch Group, in response to USPS involvement, tried to portray themselves as concerned citizens. They said they were just sharing information. They said they had reason to believe packages were going missing. They said they were protecting the community. USPS, through counsel, asked one simple thing: show the proof. In court, you can't survive on vibes. That's what people forget. The day of the hearing, Darnell wore a clean-pressed shirt and sat behind a table with USPS counsel, Ms. Alvarez, and a postal inspector who looked like he was carved out of seriousness. Across from them were a handful of residents in business casual, the kind of clothes people wear best. A judge sat above them, tired eyes, glasses low, the look of someone who has seen people ruin each other over nonsense. USPS counsel began by showing the neighborhood's posts, not the worst comments, not the ones that would make it easy, just the ones that were polite and deadly, the ones that labeled Darnell a thief while pretending to be cautious. Then USPS counsel said, simply, that USPS had reviewed the allegations thoroughly, and that the residents' claims did not match the operational record. A screen lit up with route data, a map, timestamps, a list of scanned deliveries, a sequence of stops that matched the physical geography. It wasn't flashy, but it was devastating. Then came the videos. Not doorbell clips from angry neighbors. USPS route video pulled from multiple sources, vehicle approach angles, station loading footage, and time-synced clips connected to the route's sequence of stops. The point wasn't to create a movie. The point was to show continuity, that Darnell delivered, that he moved on, that he never came back to steal later, that the narrative was invented. Clip after clip played, Darnell placing parcels where residents requested. Darnell scanning items delivered. Darnell walking away, hands empty, no suspicious return. Darnell approaching homes exactly when the scanner logs said he did. The judge leaned forward. One resident's attorney tried to argue that packages had been missing. USPS counsel asked for tracking numbers. The attorney had none. USPS counsel asked for police reports. None. USPS counsel asked for formal USPS claims. There were a few, and most were resolved as delivered or mislocated. The resident's attorney pivoted to community safety. USPS counsel did not flinch. These posts identified a federal employee as a criminal without evidence, counsel said. They encouraged residents to confront him, to film him, to follow him. They created a hostile working environment on a public route. The judge looked down at the residents. Then the judge asked the question that made the room go still. Did any of you verify that he was not simply delivering your mail? Silence. A woman cleared her throat and said she thought, "Porch pirates wear uniforms sometimes." The judge stared at her like she'd said the quiet part out loud. USPS counsel then showed the moment that started everything, the original doorbell clip. Not cropped, not zoomed, the full file. In the full clip, you could see the package get scanned. You could hear the scanner beep. You could see Darnell tuck it behind a planter the way the resident's delivery instructions requested. You could see him walk away today, and at the very end, something else appeared. A small child opened the door, ran out, and grabbed the package within minutes. The child carried it inside. The theft had been a family member, bringing in the delivery. The courtroom atmosphere shifted so hard it was almost physical. The judge asked the resident who posted the screenshot whether she'd checked with her household before accusing a federal worker of theft. The resident stammered. She said she didn't remember. She said she was just trying to help. The judge asked why she labeled him a porch pirate. She said quietly that packages had been missing in general. The judge asked whether she had evidence that Darnell had taken any. No. Then USPS counsel brought up the most dangerous part, the posts calling for residents to follow him and confront him. Counsel explained the risk. A route is not a private driveway, it is a workplace. And when a group decides to treat a worker as prey, that worker is at risk of violence, even if nobody intends it. All it takes is one person, one bad day, one confrontation that gets out of hand. Darnell sat still, hands clasped, listening to his own life described as a hazard. He felt embarrassed, then angry, then strangely relieved. Because finally, the story was in a room where facts mattered. The judge issued an order requiring the residents to remove defamatory posts and cease targeted harassment. The judge also made it clear that continuing to label Darnell as a thief without evidence could result in further consequences. The resident's attorney asked for leniency. The judge said the residents had already been lenient with themselves. Outside the courthouse, Ms. Alvarez put a hand on Darnell's shoulder. "You're good," she said. "Your record is clean." Darnell nodded, but his throat felt tight. He returned to work. The neighborhood didn't applaud. People like that don't apologize loudly. Some looked away. Some pretended nothing happened. One or two murmured a tight, "Sorry," as he walked past. The watch app quieted down, at least about him. But Darnell didn't forget. He didn't forget how quickly a crowd could decide he was a criminal without proof. He didn't forget how easily a uniform could become invisible when fear wanted a villain. He didn't forget how it felt to be filmed and watched and talked about by people who had never once asked his name. He also didn't forget the other part, that an institution, when it chose to, could bring receipts. That data could beat gossip, that a route log could beat a rumor, that a judge could look at a room of respectable-looking people and say, in plain language, "You were wrong." A few weeks later, Darnell delivered a certified envelope to the same house where the original post had come from. He stood at the door, scanner in hand, and waited for a signature. The woman opened the door and froze when she saw him. Darnell didn't glare. He didn't smirk. He didn't perform anything. He held out the scanner. The woman signed quickly, eyes down, then tried to hand it back without touching him. Darnell took it, nodded once, and walked back to the truck. He got in, closed the door, and sat for a moment before starting the engine. He wasn't a porch pirate. He was the mailman. And if the neighborhood needed a courtroom full of route video to remember the difference, that said more about them than it ever did about him.